We all know about the problems with fossil fuels, right? Climate change, pollution, the whole list. But what if we can make fuels in a clean and sustainable way? Maybe even like copying nature itself. Well, that's what scientists are working on, with something called an artificial leaf. Now, you might be thinking of like an actual leaf, but it's more like a fish. Super advanced, tiny chemical factory. The idea is to do what plants do with photosynthesis. Use sunlight to change CO2 into useful stuff, in this case. That stuff could be hydrocarbons, the things we use for fuel. So let's look at how this artificial leaf works. One of the main parts is this material, perovskite. It's really good at absorbing sunlight, so it's like the solar panel of our leaf, grabbing the energy to make the chemical reactions happen. Then there are these super tiny things, copper nanoflowers. They're catalysts, which means they help the CO2 get converted. And here's where it gets really cool. This artificial leaf isn't just breaking down CO2, it's actually using it to build more complex molecules, like ethane and ethylene. Ethane, that's a big part of natural gas. Ethylene, well, that's used in tons of stuff. Plastics, antifreeze, you name it. So we're not just capturing CO2, we could be turning it into useful products. But there's a problem, a big one. Other artificial leaves had this challenge, splitting water molecules to get hydrogen. You need hydrogen for hydrocarbons, but it takes so much energy, it's been a huge roadblock. But Gus, the scientists who made this new artificial leaf, they might have found a way around it. Instead of using water, they used a byproduct, glycerol. It's common in industry. Now glycerol, it's often just a waste product. So this way the artificial leaf is more efficient. Plus it's more sustainable, right? We're using something we'd usually just throw away. And the results are amazing. Adding the glycerol made the artificial leaf like 200 times more efficient. 200 times compared to the old ones. I mean, that's like going from a horse and buggy to a supersonic jet. But wait, there's more. This process. It also makes other useful chemicals, like byproducts, things like glycerate and lactate. Lactate, like when your muscles hurt after a workout? That's lactate buildup. But it's also used in cosmetics and pharmaceuticals. And glycerate, that's useful for pharmaceuticals too. So it's not just about cleaner fuels. Yeah. This could mean a more sustainable way to make all kinds of chemicals we need. But don't get too excited yet. There's a hurdle, a big one. The selectivity, it's only around 10%. That means only a tiny bit of the CO2 gets turned into the hydrocarbons we want. It's like you're baking a cake, but only 10% of the batter actually ends up in the cake. There's definitely room for improvement there, but the scientists think they can improve it, like redesign those copper nanoflowers, the little catalysts, to get more CO2 turned into those hydrocarbons. So where are we now? We've got this awesome tech that basically does photosynthesis, uses sunlight, turns CO2 into fuel and other useful chemicals, all while using something we'd usually throw away. It's like we could be making energy and materials in a way that's efficient and sustainable and doesn't hurt the environment. Imagine factories, power plants. They have these artificial leaves, and they capture the CO2 they make and turn it into something useful. Sounds crazy, right? Like science fiction. But it might be closer than we think. Of course, there's still work to do to scale it up, to make a real difference. That's going to take investment and research. But the potential, it's huge. This artificial leaf, it shows us that innovation, it can come from anywhere. And sometimes the answers to our biggest problems, we can find them by looking at nature.